Hey guys, welcome to Module 7. We're going to be creating a view pager for all of our buttons. So the first thing we're going to need to create is our buttons page change listener. And then we're going to need to create our buttons pager adapter and creating our buttons page transformer. So this is what's going to show whenever there's like a sliding transformation. And then we're going to need our dimensions so we could show a little part of our advanced button layout peeking over so the user can know to slide it over. And we're going to create our buttons view pager. And then we're going to create our calculator buttons layout by adding in our view pager into a layout. And this is actually one of the coolest part of this application in the user interface, creating a custom view pager which holds in our buttons and gives us that drawer layout type of feel in our calculator app. So the next thing we're gonna create for our buttons view pager is a buttons page change listener. So this is just gonna go through the views in that button and making sure it's enabled once it's present, and disabling the ones that aren't present to be touched or pressed. So we're going to create a new folder. And we're going to call this listeners. And we're going to add a new file. We're just going to make this a view. And buttons page change listener. Actually, let's just make it empty class. And we're gonna add view pager dot simple on page change listener. So we're gonna add that in, and we're gonna add in a view pager, and we're gonna add in our read-only view pager. And we're gonna set that equal to the added in view pager from our constructor, and we're going to create a method called set enable recursive. So we're going to do this recursively. That's going to take in a view and a boolean letting us know if it's enabled or not. Enabled. And if it's if the view equals null, then return. And we're going to check if this view is an instance of view group. We're going to add that in. Then we're going to be able to convert the view to a view group. And we're going to have a for loop. Starts at index 1 and I is less than equal to view group child count. So we're going to increment through this. And we're gonna call our set enabled again. So it's supposed to take in a view, and we're gonna just call our view group and get the child at the index, and we're gonna pass in the enabled. And if it's not a if this view is not a view group, then we're going to just set the view enabled equal to true. And we're going to override on page selected. And we're going to have a for loop here. And we're going to increment each child in the view pager, and we're going to call our set enabled on that view. So we're going to get the child at the index, and we're going to call set enabled recursive, and I equal to position. So in our calculator app, this advanced buttons is actually held inside a buttons view pager, which we're going to make customly. So let's get started on that. So the first thing that we're going to need to create is a buttons pager adapter, which implements the pager adapter. So we're going to need to create a new file. And what we're going to do here is add a new folder. And we're going to call this adapters. And in this file, we're going to have a Android view. And we're going to call this buttons pager adapter. And we're going to have it implement the pager adapter. We're going to have it using support v4.view, and we're going to remove all this code here. And so instead of a context, it's going to take in a view pager. And we're going to remove this base class, and we're going to name this view pager. And we're going to have a private reference to our view pager. And so we're going to implement the abstract class. So our count's going to be equal to our view pager child count. Is view from object, we're just going to return a boolean. So we're going to just check if the view is equal to the object. And now we're going to add some overrides. So we're going to override destroy item. Make sure you choose the one that's not depreciated. And we're just going to call the view pager and remove view at position. And we're going to override instantiate item. Make sure you choose the one that's not depreciated as well. And we're going to get the child. And we're going to override get page width. And we're just going to use a conditional statement. So if the position is equal to 1, then return 7.0 f floating divided by 9.0 f floating, else just return a 1 floating point number. So that's it for our buttons pager adapter. So we're going to need a page margin for like the buttons pad so that the user can see a part of the advanced buttons layout so that they will be able to drag it over. So we're going to need to add the dimensions of this, and we're going to do that by opening up our resources file. In values, we're going to add a new XML file, and we're going to call this short for dimensions, and we're going to create this. It's going to be new. We're going to add our resources tag and our closing resources tag. And in here, we're just going to put a dimension name equal to advanced buttons page margin. And we're going to set this to -26 DIP. Now we have all the classes that we're going to need to make our buttons view pager. So now we could create it. So now we're going to open up our views folder. We're going to add a new file. And we are going to have it implement a view, and we're going to call this buttons view pager. We're going to set this to new, and we're going to have it implement a view pager. And we're going to remove this constructor. And in our initialize, we are going to add everything we need for our buttons view pager. So we're going to need our buttons pager adapter. We're going to add this in using our calculator adapter. We're also going to set the background color equal to color we're going to add this using in. We're going to set this to black. And we're going to add an on-page change listener. And this is going to be our new buttons page change. And this is going to take in a view pager. We're going to add this using in. And we're going to have our page margin. We're going to set our page margin equal to resources dot get dimensions pixel size, and we're going to open up our resource dimensions. So we called this advanced buttons page margin. We're going to close that, and we're going to set our page transformer. We're going to set in reverse drawing order to false, and we're going to add in our buttons page transformer. And we're going to add in our view pager. So our view pager is able to be initialized in here. And the last thing we're going to have to do is add an override for our onFinish inflate. And in here, we're just going to notify the adapter that the data set has changed. Now that we completed our buttons view pager, we can now create a layout to hold all our buttons. So let's get started doing that. So we're going to open up resources and layout, and we're going to add a new file. We're going to click layout, and we're going to call this calculator buttons. So our view pager is going to hold all of our buttons layout that we created. So we're going to reference the calculator the buttons view pager. So we're going to type in droid.views.buttons view pager. And we're going to have the height wrap content. And we're going to set the over scroll mode to never. And we're going to have a linear layout that's going to hold the numeric and the operator buttons. And then we're going to have outside the linear layout our advanced buttons. So in this view pager, there's only going to be 2 views, 2 childs in it. So Android orientation, we're going to set that to horizontal. The width is going to be match parent. And the height is going to be wrap content. And our weight is going to be 100. Our weight sum is going to be 100. Close this. And now we're going to use the include so that we can include another layout. We're going to type in layout. And we're going to put at layout / numeric buttons. Android layout underscore weight equal to 75, and our height to match parent. So when you use include, the only things you could override are things that have the layout underscore. So we're going to take the width and we're going to set that to 0 dp. We're going to close this. And we're going to include the operator buttons. So it'll just be easier to copy this and paste it. And we're going to call operator. And we're going to set this to 18, leaving a little space for our advanced to peak. And we're going to include our advanced buttons. So that's it for our buttons view pager. Now that we completed our button view pager and created our calculator buttons, let's check out our layout. So we're just going to click the play button, which indicates to run it. And this is going to come up on my emulator, which is set up as a Pixel API 25 emulator. You could also use your device if you have your device plugged in. So as you could see, our buttons is taking up majority of the layout. And in this module, we're going to go over how we're going to fix this issue. In order to address our layout issue, let's open up our calculator layout and take a look. One of our issues is that we have different views meshed into each other, especially with this include, that they have different type of layout widths and layout heights that are interfering with each other. So we're not able to directly address what size it should be on the screen. So one way to address this would be to create a calculator display which holds this text view and Then in our calculator layout, include both layouts and use our weight sum to lay out our layouts properly. Let's create a new file in our layout. And we're going to call this layout, and we're going to call this calculator display. We're going to click source. So we're going to go to the calculator layout, and we're just going to copy everything from our calculator layout and paste it into our calculator display. We're going to remove our include. All right, in our calculator, let's clean it up and add in our display. Include layout. And we're gonna close this up. We're gonna change our layout height to wrap content. We're also gonna remove our padding. And we're gonna update the layout height. And set that equal to 0. And we're going to do the same for our calculator buttons. So now we have that set up. Let's save it and take a look. So as we could see all of our calculator display, but the sizing isn't quite right. And also our delete button is quite large. So let's fix all those in the next tutorial. All right, guys, let's open up our calculator display and update it. So we're just going to go down to our layout, open up our calculator display and click source. So we're going to have to update our paddings mostly in this view and some of our text sizes. So let's start from the top and work our way down. So we're going to remove our padding top here, and we're going to add an Android elevation. We're going to set that equal to 4 dp. We're going to change our height to wrap content. We're also going to add a padding top in this text view. We're going to set that equal to 20 dp. We're also going to update the text size to 16 dp. And we're going to update the weight of our input text view to 45. We're also going to add a padding top, and that's going to be 35 dp. And we're going to update the text size to 60 dp. And we're also going to update this weight. We're going to set it to 10. We're going to add a padding top, and we're going to set that equal to 10 dp. And we're going to also add a padding bottom, and we're going to set that equal to 20 dp. Okay, now we're going to open up our calculator button view holder to edit our delete button. So let's go into views and open up our calculator button view holder. And all we're going to do is check if the text is equal to our delete. And then if it is, we're going to set a size for it. And let's just add in our using to make this a little more similar. And we're gonna call delete. And we're gonna call our calculator button, and we're gonna set its text size. I'm gonna set it equal to 15. And that should take care of our sizing issue. Now that we have everything updated in our layouts and in our code, let's check out our layout. All right, as you could see, our layout's looking much better. Our calculator display has enough space and our buttons have enough space, and you could see our functionality with our view pager. So now that we have everything in place, it's time for us to start working on the code. So I look forward to working with you on that in the next module.